Welcome to Breaking Solo, how solopreneurs break barriers, build brands, and embrace the future of business.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Breaking Solo. I'm very excited for my guest today, Ken Stephen. Ken, thank you so much for being with me.
Donna, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, will you tell the audience what you do?
Well, I help solopreneur coaches and consultants get unstuck from a revenue plateau and add at least $20,000 per month to their revenue by fixing the right things in the right order, using my 5 business growth driver framework and my revenue freedom method. And we figure out what's broken and needs fixing using my revenue growth readiness scorecard.
Awesome. And that's what we're going to talk about today because I took your scorecard and I find it very interesting. So, where did the 5 drivers come from?
Well, Donna, my background, I've always been in marketing, and I spent a number of years in the corporate world, and I hung up my shingle as a marketing consultant, and I started consulting with businesses. Um, and when you first start out as a solopreneur, you basically say, "Yeah, I do marketing, so I can do all kinds of marketing. What do you need, right?" And very quickly, I realized that I should niche down, and my specialty became a very simple promise. I promised to double the sales and profits of companies that were basically on a $5 million to $7 million plateau. And they've been trying for a couple of years to break through that plateau, and they couldn't. And so that became my specialty. And I'm happy to say that I was successful 93.7% of the time. So in that time, I noticed a similar pattern kept popping up, that growth was being stymied by one of 5 different growth drivers. Would you like me to tell you what they are?
Please.
Okay, good. So the first one is mindset and vision. Okay, actually, let me run through them all first, and then I'll give a brief explanation which each one of those is. Mindset and vision is the first one, and then we've got offer and business model as the second one. Marketing and visibility is number 3. Number 4 is systems and automation. And number 5 is authority and reach. So if we go right back to mindset and vision, Don, you've probably seen this with your clients too, where you're working with them, and what I found is that 7 out of 10 clients really don't have a detailed, written down blueprint for what they want their business to become and how it's supposed to fit into their life. Right. And when you think of it, when you come from the corporate world and you hang up your shingle as either a coach or a consultant, you're bringing with you all that expertise and everything. And the thing that you didn't have in the corporate world was control over your work day. But now as a solopreneur, you do. And so you have to think of business as part of your life. And so the mindset and vision thing, quite often, coaches haven't figured out how their business relates to the lifestyle that they want to lead. And, they start out thinking, well, that 40-hour week is going to be a 30-hour week because I'm working for myself, and it ends up being a 60 or 70-hour week because they didn't plan that ahead of time, right? So that's where mindset and vision comes in. We got to start right there. Next thing is offer and business model. Now, it's quite simple. It's your product or the service that you offer, and it's the price that you offer it at. The business model is, it's either one-on-one, working one-on-one with clients, doing group coaching. Perhaps you're a course creator and you've got video tutorials or something, some kind of a video teaching program that you offer. It could be a hybrid of all those things. So that's offer and business model. The one that most people are familiar with is obviously marketing and visibility. And the interesting thing here, Don, you've probably seen this too, is that whenever revenue starts to stall, this is where everybody immediately puts their effort, right? We'll spend more on marketing. Okay. We'll try the latest marketing tactic. Okay. Some shiny new marketing thing has come out. We're going to try it because surely that will be the solution. Right. And so that's all the stuff we talk about under marketing and visibility. The interesting thing is that a lot of times you spend money there and nothing happens because something with offer and business model isn't working, or something with mindset and vision isn't working. Right.
Yeah.
Number 4 is systems and automation. And a lot of times I go into companies and I see that they've automated systems, or they've created systems for for a procedure that's flawed. Okay, it isn't an optimized procedure, and yet they've automated it, right? So that it doesn't make sense to automate anything until you've got all the bugs out of it, and you know that it's firing on all cylinders. So that's what we talk about in systems and automation. And the important part there is, this is the part where, my promise is to help you make $20,000 more per month while working less hours. And this is where the working less hours comes in, because if you start to automate systems that you no longer have to be involved in, then you've got now time to spend doing personal things that's why you designed your business in the first place, was to have that time to enjoy, your personal life. So that happens under the system of automation. You can actually start to slowly walk away from the business that runs without you. And then the last one is authority and reach. And that's really where you're leveraging other people's authority and their reach to add authority and reach to you. So for example, I'm on your podcast today, and I'm now leveraging my authority and reach to your audience. And, because you're saying, hey, Ken's a nice guy, then they're more likely to like me and trust me, right? And so that's where that comes in. That's where authority and reach comes in, that you're using basically as a third party endorsement to add credibility to your expertise. So those are the 5 drivers.
All right. So that's great. Let me ask you a question though. Your report makes a genuinely counterintuitive claim that starting with your weakest driver is often the wrong move.
Yes.
That
Yes.
goes against almost everything I've ever read in a business book.
Well, you know what? I think the best way to explain that is with an analogy. Okay. Think about it this way. You wake up one morning and you go outside to start your car, and you put the key in the ignition and you turn the key, or you push the button, depending what kind of car you got, and nothing happens. And so you look down at the dashboard and you see, the fuel gauge is reading empty. So obviously the problem is, I need gas. You go down to the gas station, you get some gas, you come home, you put it in the car, put the key back in the ignition, you turn it, and nothing happens. And then you say, maybe it's a dead battery. So you get a neighbor to come over, boost the battery. Sure enough, that was the problem. The car starts fine. Okay. So what did you have there? 2 different drivers. Driver for the car, electrical driver, the battery. Okay. Driver for the car, the fuel. Okay. Okay. The order that you tried to fix it, you put the fuel in and nothing happened. Right. Okay. And that looked like the weakest driver at the time, right? You tried to fix that. It didn't work. Okay. Okay. It was you needed a little boost in the battery, and then all of a sudden the whole thing works. So just like a car, trying to get momentum with the car, you can't get the momentum unless you fix things in the right order. Right. Doesn't matter that you fix the downstream driver, because it also relied on an upstream driver to be firing on all cylinders. Right. Same thing happens in the business. If you fix your weakest driver, okay, it's not necessarily, there could be other drivers that need fixing too before that one can actually take effect. Okay. And so everything has to be done in the right order.
That makes perfect sense. Although you don't read that in business books.
No. Well, here's the other thing too, Donna, is that in a lot of cases, most people, they don't realize that maybe more than one thing's broken and needs fixing, right? And so they may go and they may fix their marketing, for example. They may spend more money on marketing thinking that marketing's broken, but it could be that their ideal client doesn't find their offer compelling enough, or doesn't think that it solves the problem that they really have, right? And so it doesn't matter how much you spend on marketing, because people don't see the need for your solution.
Boy, that's true. And I think a lot of solopreneurs struggle with that. So I scored a 94 on mindset and vision, but only a 63 on offer and business model. What have you seen? And is that combination common?
All combinations are common. Okay. They really are. In fact, I actually took a look at your report. Okay. And you did very, very well. I mean, just so everybody understands, the report scores each of the 5 drivers as either uses the stoplight system. It's either red, amber, or green. If it's red, then it's something you really need to be working on. If it's amber, hey, some things are firing on all cylinders, and some things still need some more. And that was the case with your amber there, the 63, right? And then if you're green, it's hey, over 70% on that particular driver. So you're really set up and you're strong. So you overall scored green on all 5 drivers. Okay. And that's very rare. It's very rare. Well, of course, it makes sense because, I mean, you coach people how to set things up, right? So, I mean, it's very good that you're scoring green. Okay. Donna knows what she's talking about. Okay. She scores green. It's okay. But what it was on the system. So at any particular time, when you score green like that, okay, your growth is going to come from, it's typical. What is typical is that just one of the 5 drivers will need strengthening somehow. Okay. If you score green, if you were to score amber, it might be 2 or even 3 drivers that need strengthening. And if you score red, it's probably 3 or 4 drivers that need strengthening. Okay. And so in your case, it was just one of them was obviously going to need, if you didn't have like 90 as your green score, obviously one of your drivers was going to be a little weaker. 63 is very close to 70. It's actually very strong, still a very strong driver. But what it means is that there's still some things there that could be tweaked, all right? And make your offer and business model even stronger. And then that will have an even greater compounding effect because that's going to be firing on all cylinders and it'll work better. It's kind of, think of it again, all these car analogies today. It's kind of like saying you've got an 8-cylinder engine. Okay, in this case, a 5-cylinder engine, and one of them's just misfiring a little bit, right? So you can't get full power when you put your foot down on the gas. But as soon as you get that 5th driver firing, now you're going to get up top speed.
Well, and I know what's wrong with my business model.
Good. Okay.
I'm very aware.
And then the choice is yours whether or not you want to fix it, right? I mean, and that's the other thing too, is that one of the things I say to people is that, sure, I'm going to show you how to add another $20,000 per month, because when the 5 drivers are aligned in the right sequence, it becomes an expectation. It doesn't mean it's not a pipe dream that you can get 20,000. And that's just like, again, 93.7% of my clients, I was able to do that because it's the same pattern over and over and over again once you get it done. But a lot of coaches and consultants are saying, well, I don't really need another $20,000 a month. Another 10 would be just fine. Another 5 would just be fine, right? And I've even coached people on how to have $1 million years. But a lot of people are saying, I don't need that. And that's the other key thing. I guess back to the mindset and vision thing. What do you really want your business to be? I mean, you're trying to have this multi-million-dollar, company that you're building, legacies you're going to pass down, or is it just a nice, home-based business that supports your lifestyle and keeps you comfortable and allows you to take work 3 days and take 4 days off?
Yeah. So that's my next question for you. The phrase "without working more hours" is really your whole promise. But almost every solopreneur I know hits a point where systematizing, delegating, and building authority all feels like more work, not less. At least at first.
Well, at least at first it is, right? I mean, it absolutely is. Again, this is where doing things in the right order really helps, right? Because it's less effort to put a system together on something once you know that your offer is exactly what people want, okay? And that your business model. So for example, if you have a one-on-one coaching business model, it may very well be that it's going to be hard to scale because you only have so many hours available, right? Okay. So then you might, so that's one of the ways to get less time in your schedule is to say, fine, we'll move to a group coaching model, right? And we'll coach 10 people at the same time, 10 people in an hour instead of 1 person an hour. And that frees up more of your time. And so if you do it in the right order, then all of a sudden, okay, I just freed up 9 hours of your time. Now you got 9 hours to work on doing one of the other things, like you say, that's going to seem like overwhelm. So it's a long way around of saying it's all about putting things in the right order.
It keeps coming back to that, Ken.
Well, that's my thing, right? Like it's not about just fixing things. They have to be fixed in the right order, because if you fix them in the right order, you get a compounding effect. And if you don't fix them in the right order, they tend to work against each other.
Yeah, for sure. So you say that we could increase our income at least 20K, not necessarily the revenue,
Revenue.
without working more hours. What does the math actually look like? Is it pricing, leverage, conversion, or all three?
If I had to say there was one in particular, it's going to be pricing. It's going to be pricing. Okay. You may have noticed this too, Donna. The thing that I've noticed, especially with coaches and consultants, and having, I'm both, right? I've been both for many years. Coaches and consultants tend to greatly undervalue their service. Okay. I'll say, hey, I was guilty of this myself. When I came from the corporate world, hung up my shingle as a marketing consultant, right? I charged by the hour, right? I said, okay, fine. Every job that I quoted, I said, okay, fine. It's probably going to take like X number of hours times this rate. Increase it by 20% because things always take longer than they should. And that's what I'm going to say this proposal is worth, right? And then what I really discovered is that I wasn't standing out competitively because everyone else was doing exactly the same thing, right? And then one day I just got this bold idea that I was going to go in and I was going to charge twice as much as what I would normally charge. Just twice as much. I just pulled that out of the hat, okay? And I figured, what's the worst that could happen? They're either going to think I'm incredibly arrogant, or they're going to think maybe I'm really good, okay? And I got the gig. Right. And so then I realized that because after, you have to be able to deliver. Obviously, you have to be able
Right.
to get the transformation. And then later my business growth stuff turned into business turnarounds. So I was actually turning around public companies that were going out of business. And there, so what happened there is I realized that when you're doing a business turnaround, what's the value of the transformation you deliver to the client? You and I had a conversation in the podcast that we did together, okay, about transformation, right? When you're doing coaching, it's all about the transformation. Even when you're doing consulting, it's about the transformation.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yep.
So the transformation for a company that's going out of business and 1,100 people are going to lose their jobs, okay, what's the value if you can turn that company around? It's priceless, right? And so what I started doing then is saying, okay, I will take a piece of the upside, right? Now all of a sudden you are, there's an incentive for you, okay, to make the turnaround as successful as possible, as quickly as possible, because you're going to get a percentage of your success, right? And you agree up front with the client saying, okay, would a return on investment of this be good for you? Okay. And so it's a long way around of answering your question is that sometimes the fastest way to get an extra $20,000 in income a month is to take a look at your offer and business model and say, you are greatly undervaluing what your solution is worth to your ideal client prospect.
Yeah. But for solopreneurs, that is one of the hardest things to come to grips with. And I know when I started years ago, pricing was an issue.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask for too much money. But like you said, you have to learn what the value is that you bring to the table and then ask for the right price.
Well, that's exactly right. It's so funny you say you don't want to charge too much money, but I still remember going into a client, and actually I had to fly down to South Carolina, meet him in the Delta Lounge, right? Present my proposal in the Delta Lounge, okay, because he was connecting flights to somewhere else, right? Okay, and I gave them my proposal, and he looked at me, he said, "It's kind of expensive, isn't it?" And I looked him back and straight in the eye, and I said, "Actually, it's very expensive." And took out his pen and he signed, right? It's because he knew the value, right? Okay. Their response is always going to be, okay, Well, it's expensive, right? Because they want you to knock it down, right? Okay. You just have resist the temptation to knock it down because you know yourself that what the value is, right? So again, long way around of answering your question that one of the fastest ways to gain another 20,000 a month is to reevaluate your pricing structure.
Yeah. Good information and good thing to do, solopreneurs. Look at that pricing. Okay. So for someone like me who scored green overall,
Mhm.
but still feels like there's untapped revenue on the table, what's the trap at that stage? What does doing well tend to get wrong? Businesses that are doing well tend to get wrong that businesses that aren't.
I think this is where so what businesses that score green very often don't go back on a regular basis and reevaluate the mindset and vision.
Oh,
Right. And
yeah.
so you're saying, hey, things are moving along quite nicely. Okay. What do we want to do? Do we want to keep growing? Okay. In which case we want to look at ways to add more revenue, or do we want to keep the revenue the same and find ways to spend less personal time in the business? Okay. Do we want to prepare the business to potentially have an exit so that we can sell to someone potentially? Okay. Do we want to prepare it as a legacy to pass down in the family? Right. So it's when you score green, the temptation is just to become complacent, right? And just keep doing things the way you've been doing them. And I always recommend someone who scores green, let's sit down together, let's reevaluate what you'd really like to happen in your life next. Right. And I always start with what's going to give them the most life fulfillment. The ironic thing, we talked about it earlier, the ironic thing about going into business for yourself and becoming a solopreneur is that you did it to create personal freedom, right? And you end up becoming a prisoner to the business that you create, right? And it seems like the only way you can earn more money is to invest more time. So those 40 hours a week you put in at corporate become, 60, 70, 80, right? And you give up weekends and that 4-week vacation package you had in corporate is now down to a week if you're lucky, all right? And so that's where, like I say, that's not fulfilling. That's not fulfilling, right? And that's why if you're going to start the business or even, yeah, I work with clients that have more or less been trying to increase their revenue for maybe 3 years and just can't seem to do it no matter what they try.
Right.
They're not brand new startups or anything like that, right? It's just, so that's the first thing I do is sit down saying, look, you're near burnout, right? You're working 80 hours a week. You're working on the weekends. Your family never sees you. Okay. This doesn't make sense. Let's start there. Okay. Okay. How many hours a week do you want to work? Right. Okay. And what do you want to do with this money that you make? I mean, do you want to travel more? Do you want more vacations? Do you want a bigger house? What is it you're trying to do with your life? Let's figure that out first so that you have fulfillment. You want to be able to wake up as a solopreneur and want to go to work in the morning.
Right.
You don't want to feel like, oh my God, what have I done? And so we start there and then we reverse engineer it. We say, well, what do we have to do in the business to make that happen? And the easiest way to free up time is immediately say, I'm going to give myself a 3-day weekend. All of my meetings, everything I do has to happen, let's say Monday through Thursday. Okay. And maybe I have to work a little longer. Maybe I have to work 10 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, but I'm definitely going to take Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, and you hold yourself to it. And you will be surprised how you figure it out. Because now you know it's not an option. I can't schedule anything on Friday. I can't. I've got to figure out a way. And then part of that gets to that's where your systems and your procedures come in. Okay, standard operating procedures. Okay, so again, when I work with the clients, I'm saying, okay, let's get everything firing all cylinders so we can create a system so that someone else can do this so that you don't have to, so that you can take Friday off. Right. And the other thing I do too, Donna, and you know this, is that I've done a lot of work on passion discovery. And I really do believe that people should be doing, some people call it their superpower or whatever. Like we're good at doing a number of things, but we don't enjoy doing everything we're good at. So when we're doing those systems and procedures, what I always do is say, look, let's leave. The only things that you should be doing are things that you love to do and you happen to be really good at doing. And then all the other stuff, even if you are good at doing it, you don't like doing it. We're doing a system procedure so that someone else can do it. Right. And then again, that adds to your free time.
Yeah. So, I have an issue. I've always had an issue with delegation. Oh, I always know I have to go back to that and relook at what I'm doing in that area so that I can let go of stuff.
Well, hey, listen, I've always been a bit of a control freak myself, like it's just, but the consequences are, that, you will have less personal time and your life will be less fulfilling.
Right.
But I agree, it is tough for people like us to let go. But that's why we have mentors, right? Because that's mentors like you and I help people figure out. We'll guide you through it. We'll get you past the 30 days so it becomes a habit.
There we go. Okay. So, for our listeners, if you could only, if you could tell them only one thing they could do this week based on your framework, what would it be? And what would you tell them to deliberately ignore for now?
Actually, Don, I think the where it all starts, it gets back to this issue. If you don't know what's broken, you don't know what to fix. So the thing that I would encourage them to do is just go to kensteven.com. It's just my name, kensteven.com. Okay. That whole first page is all about diagnosing what's going on in your business, right? And again, it's all based on the pattern I saw through all those years of consulting. Is that I would always go in and I would take a snapshot of the business on the day I arrived. Okay. What's working and what's not working, right? The diagnostic that I created, which is the Revenue Growth Readiness Scorecard, that's basically doing the snapshot, is taking a look at those 5 areas. Okay. And it takes, this is 20 questions. It takes less than 5 minutes to do, right? It wasn't
It
tough,
wasn't,
was it?
yeah,
Okay.
wasn't tough.
And it's free, right? And you'll get a 12-page PDF report. Then, okay, you'll see in the report where you're weak and where you're strong, where you need to be working on some things, and where you can feel pretty confident you've got things in order. You're right. It will show you the weakest driver, but that may not be the best place to start. Okay, but at least you'll see all the places where you're weak. And then you'll know, do I have just one problem, or do I have 2 problems, or do I have 3 problems? Or maybe you have no problems, right? But the point is that the starting point is a diagnosis, right? You need a diagnostic snapshot. That's the one thing, Donna, that, I've noticed, like the entire industry, as you know, it's just everyone is basically promoting new tactics, new platforms, new ways to automate. Okay. No one's really talking about diagnosing first before you add all these new bells and whistles. So how do you know if adding that new bell or whistle is actually going to grow your revenue? Because you haven't taken the time to figure out what's working and what isn't. And in a lot of cases, it's a very quiet thing happening behind the scenes. You don't even suspect it's not working. Okay. And that's why your first step I would encourage people to do is do a diagnostic. And as I say, hey, that's why I created the Revenue Growth Scorecard. Hey, take advantage of it. It's free.
Yeah. And listeners, I will put Ken's web address just in case you forget in the show notes so you can have easy access to it. Ken, I have so enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Donna. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we'll talk again soon. Okay, everybody. Ken's episode will be live shortly, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.